God damn it. We started a little bit earlier than the countdown here. It was counting too slow. Nico, it's great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Today I'm super excited. I'm super excited as we have like every other week quite some decent and interesting topics to speak about putting ourselves on the hot seat. So shout out to our listeners as well. Feel free to chat and to blame us for getting things wrong. Especially for today, there might be the case that we're getting some things wrong. So just feel free to interact with us. Yeah, and anything else is good as well. Back in Munich, snowing outside, all good. So we're in the literally, sliding towards Christmas. How about you, Pierre? How are you?
Fantastic to hear, Nico. And as you say here today, it's a very interesting kind of conversation that we have in front of us here today, because we're going to do a deep dive into the world of AI. I don't think it has escaped anyone that the launch of ChatGPT is either being hailed as something that will change the world, or the other side of the coin is that it's nothing really new and exciting. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the world of AI today and the expectations here on the ChatGPT. As you may suspect, true to our iGaming Next brand, we may be a bit biased towards really interesting and exciting new products, but you'll have to stay and see for yourself as well. Second point as well, there's some really interesting news this week and some really interesting movements of the industry overall. I mean, today, just a couple of hours ago, it was announced that Catena Media has finally sold off its Ask Gamblers assets. This was Catena Media's flagship affiliation brand, the Ask Gamblers, and they announced even about a year ago that they were intending to offload the Ask Gamblers brand to focus more on the North American markets and the opportunities over there. And some quite interesting nuances there. The price seemingly is extremely low. We're going to kind of analyze why that is in a little bit as well. Point number 3 is that evolution is always a reoccurring topic here in the iGaming Next news. They saw a bit of a panic attack here on the stock markets the other day, where the share price dropped something like 7-8%. Back on the news, basically, that the EU has now kind of rubber stamped the idea that they are going to kind of harmonize the minimum corporate tax levels to a minimum of 15%. And as many people know, Evolution is domiciled in Malta, and here we have something that's called the imputation system, which means that foreign companies, or rather companies that are deriving most of the revenues from services and products abroad, can apply essentially to a rebate that will get the tax rate down to 5% rather than the 35% corporate tax rate that the rest of the Maltese population and organizations have to pay. And finally as well, I think just taking a bit of a kind of macro perspective on the world again, and it's certainly something that will affect our little industry, is the fact that the Feds over in the US has raised the interest rates again to the expected levels. They were expected to increase the interest rate by 0.5% or 500 basis points, as it's called. However, what they are also hinting at is that these very, very high interest rates are going to stay for a longer period of time than people may have previously expected. And so we want to talk a little bit today as well, like, what does this mean? Like, what does it mean when you increase interest rates? Why are the Feds doing this? And what's the purpose? And how potentially will it affect the iGaming industry? What do you think about that agenda, Nico? I think that's world class, if you ask me.
Indeed, it's world class. It just reads like an MBA course as well.
Right.
Coming up with some taxes, a minimum tax rate, then speaking about inflation rate as well, and what the Fed and also the European Central Bank are doing, because they also announced like increasing the inflation, not the inflation rate, the interest rate to 2.5%. So keeping up with the Fed as well, following their footsteps. So as said, we can just, talk to the real deal Nico. So your Nico on your side, just cut out the pieces of the taxes of evolution and the interest rate, and we'll just upload it to the to any kind of Harvard business class and just take it from there. And if we can't make it, we will just, run or let ChatGPT run through it, and then, we're done.
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to kind of spoil the whole thing today, but actually it was ChatGPT who wrote this excellent world-class agenda for us today. So everything is here today is basically we are parroting the AI, essentially. Nico, nonetheless, over to the human being here. Nico, you have your classic 10 in 5 here. So I know that you have compiled 10 stories that have stood up to you in the iGaming industry in the last week. And as always, the clock is set for 5 minutes. It's something we never manage, but still, we're going to give it a shot today as well. So, Nico, do you want to start today by just running through the 10 most interesting movements of the industry in very short format here? All right.
Kick me off.
Good luck.
Kick me off.
Let's go.
Okay, I will just start. I'm just gaining a little bit of seconds. It's good. So first of all, we already spoke after the election in Brazil about iGaming and sports betting being allowed in Brazil as of now. Fact is, Brazil has missed the open goal to regulate sports betting, although regulation had been in place since December 2017. They did not come up with the regulatory framework, and they had a time of 5 years to actually finalize the framework, and this has run out by 12th of December 2022. So as it was marked the last possible day for Brazil to approve its federal sports betting regime, which has not been approved. So there will be no sports betting in Brazil. We will just see what Lula will come up with. Then the GGL takes charge of German gambling's interstate duties. Germany's new regulator has taken full control of the duties outlined in the nation's fourth interstate gambling treaty, shortcut GLÜ-Neu-RSTV, with the Glücksspiel GGL becoming the common authority for German gambling. So each and everything will now be decided and done in the world-class town of Halle. If you don't know it, look it up. It's awesome. So JetBull, they are about to shut down their business. The online casino and sportsbook operator JetBull has advised customers that it will cease operating at jetbull.com this month. It's no longer accepting deposits and intends to close completely in 2 weeks. They already have missed or had been taking away their UK license in 2019. Unfortunately, it seems like they did not get back on track. Then the court rejects Dope O'Durney's appeal against the 5.85 Gambling Commission fine. So in September 2021, the commission fined Dope O'Durney for roughly £6 million for social responsibility and anti-money laundering failures. By following a hearing, Judge Findlay dismissed the appeal and stated the financial penalty was a fair and reasonable regulatory response. So it's roughly £6 million on the clock. Then, speaking about penalties, heading over to Australia, Star has been hit with a 100 million Australian dollar penalty and license suspension in Queensland. And the Australian financial watchdog also sued 11 executives of the Star Group as well. So there's something happening in Australia like literally every week. Then Massachusetts regulator awards first sports betting license to Encore Boston Harbor. So Encore Boston Harbor will be able to start with their offerings in January 2023, to be followed by online sports betting in early March. Now, heading over to the US, New York sports betting revenue. We know they are, aiming for revenue after revenue. As of now, just in November, betting revenue hits a record of 148 million. So we're speaking about revenues, and the handle was 1.55 billion US dollar. Then heading over to the M&A, Playstar is about to receive $15 million in funding by the Maya Global Management Equity Fund. Then getting back to Australia, ACMA issues 2 further blocking orders against offshore sites. So if you're a member or a customer of Pokizino and ABA Lucky 33, you're not able to log in anymore. And last but not least, the online bank Monzo, which came up with a solution to block specific transactions. It seems like they're hitting a nail, as 20% more gambling transactions over the last months have been blocked, with 50,000 users already signed up for this specific service. As said, they obviously hit a nail with that kind of offering, and that's my 10 and 5.
That is absolutely fantastic, Nico. You know what? I love you for doing that every single week for us. Thank you. Thank you, Nico. That's amazing. Something that stood out to me of those 10 points is the Playstar with Per Hellberg, who managed to close a $15 million investment round. So just to give some context here, guys, I mean, Carousel Group with our friend Alan Grassner folded a couple of weeks ago due to the fact that they were not able to raise capital into the organization. It's very difficult in the US right now for US focused small operators to even enter a conversation to raise capital in the market as it's looking today. And the fact that Playstar and Per Hellberg were able to raise $50 million rather in fresh capital to pursue the US only strategy, it speaks volume of how well executed they have been able to run their operations so far. Clearly, they have done a lot of things right in order to get this investment. So yeah, kudos to those guys for managing to do that under these conditions. Nico, I want to jump in actually to the GIG and Ask Gamblers topic here as a starting point today, if you don't mind. I think this is kind of the lead topic, especially since the news were announced just a couple of hours ago. So essentially, Ask Gamblers have been for sale for about a year. Catena Media has announced that they are looking to offload most of the European assets in order to focus on the major growth market, which is the United States. And in order to do that, they announced a year ago that they are looking to sell Ask Gamblers. And there's been a lot of speculation here of who is going to acquire Ask Gamblers. Speculation is that most of the revenue is derived from gray markets, so potentially a non-publicly traded affiliate could potentially steer that ship a lot better than a publicly traded company can do. That has to report openly to shareholders, consider risk premiums, consider ESG, things like this. But actually, I would say to my surprise, it was another publicly traded company who acquired Ask Gamblers in Gaming Innovation Group. If we look at the price that the GIG paid for the assets in Ask Gamblers, they paid for a $45 million price. That was the kind of fair value of Ask Gamblers, and this is going to be paid in all cash. So they paid 20 million euro upfront, followed by another 10 million after year one, followed by another 15 million after year two. And I want to just pass the ball over to you here, Nico. Is there anything that stands out to you with this story so far? Any additional kind of input on your side? What do you think about this acquisition?
So first of all, besides GIG actually acquiring Ask Gamblers, what's quite interesting that they also announced that they appoint Marcel Elfersee as the new CCO of the platform and sportsbook, which pretty much falls into the same headlines. Marcel, being a former 888 guy, actually, or already holding like kind of different C-level seats in different well-known companies. And it's interesting that this specific acquisition falls into, Marcel being announced as the new CCO as well. This was the first one which actually ran through my mind, and something which you already pointed out. They announced like, okay, we are willing to sell these assets already 1 year ago, and then you could just literally see how the price actually dropped a little bit. There are rumors going around that Ask Gamblers had been offered, if I'm not mistaken, for a price 60 to 80 million dollars. Now it's 45 million dollars. You already pointed out it's the 4 times the EBITDA. It just seems like they were desperately looking for a buyer to shift over the money to the cash-hungry US market, which is just crazy with respect to the monthly burn rate, which you actually need to get the foot into the door in the US. But it will be interesting to see how Marcel will use the asset of Ask Gamblers if it actually falls under his control. But these are my 2 or 3 sentences to this one. What's your guess on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to go on a bit of a tangent here, I thought I love that we do this live, Nico, because Per Hellberg, who is the CEO of Playstar, he just wrote in the chat that he's happy to explain how they managed to raise this capital into Playstar. And to tie the story together here that we're talking about, Per Hellberg is also the former CEO of Catena Media, who just sold Ask Gamblers. And so if Per Hellberg is willing, it would be really interesting to see if he would be willing to come into the chat here with us, or come into the live stream rather, if he has time. We'll see. I just wrote to our head of marketing here, Nico, and see if he could potentially send a link to the studio for Per Hellberg, if he is willing and ready to just talk a little bit more about what he thinks about Catena Media offloading Ask Gamblers, and also it'd be interesting to find out as well how they were able to close the investment here with Playstar. So it's super interesting. Hopefully, fingers crossed that we'll be able to get Per Hellberg on here live. That's why we're live. Exciting things happening all the time here. But Nico, on to your question here. So the rumor has it, or rather, not so much of a rumor, but we know that Catena Media were trying to ask for a 75 to 80 million euro price tag on Ask Gamblers about 6 months ago. And obviously they haven't been successful in selling the assets at that price. And, current market conditions makes it difficult sometimes to get the valuations that you feel that an organization is worth. And so obviously it dropped here to 45 million for GIG. I think if we look at it really and truly, this represents about 4 times the EBITDA of Ask Gamblers. So they published that during the first 9 months of the year, Ask Gamblers were able to generate about 8.4 million EBITDA. So if we assume that they will generate an average of that in the last 3 months, that would make the total EBITDA for the year about 11 million, which equates down to 4 times the EBITDA was the price that the GIG was paying. This is an exceptionally low multiple for an established brand like the Ask Gamblers, and I think that there are a couple of reasons why the multiple is this low. First of all, it could be that that Ask Gamblers is just not able to grow. So if they are decreasing revenues year on year, the multiple also goes down with it, of course. A second point could also be that most of the revenue is generated via the gray markets, and gray market revenues are treated with a lower multiple. There's a higher risk factor in those type of revenues, and also just the kind of current market conditions make it such that it's difficult to ask for very high multiples today. But I thought that was quite interesting. And, a couple of years ago, Nico, GIG was going through a very rough time. And actually, it's just exceptional what they have been able to do with GIG. And I'm going to just see if I have this graph ready here. Yeah, so This is GIG basically the last 5 years that we are looking at here now, the share price. And during the pandemic of 2020, the share price was as low as 3 SEK, so 3 kroner. And now, 2.5 years later, the share price has now climbed to 30 times a. That means that from the bottom here during the pandemic, GIG has 10 doubled their market cap in a 2.5 year span. That is absolutely remarkable, and especially so during these tough times. In fact, GIG has increased their share value by about 100% in the last year. Okay, think about that. A year ago, the stock market peaked. The economy peaked a year ago. Okay, and entire tech sector has tanked 50, 60, 70%. And GIG has gone totally against the stream and increased the share value by 100%. That is just absolutely remarkable. So GIG continues to go from strength to strength, and I'm personally just very, very happy to see this overall. Over to you a little bit, Nico. And in the meantime, I'm going to send the link here to Per Hellberg to see if we can get him on the stream here. So feel free, Nico, to chime in with your thoughts here.
Yeah, so first of all, just having the graphics in mind, which you just shown with the share price. Do you actually know when they opened up their new fancy office in Malta? Maybe the burn rate was a little bit too high, and that's why they have this going down. And then what we should never forget, especially within our industry, it's a quite small industry as well. And if key prospects or key managers, key people actually leave the company, and also GIG, with James King actually leaving the company as well, these are assets which you actually miss during the times. And if I'm not mistaken, James left like 2.5 years ago already, and that's why they specifically now try to get the new heroes on board with the appointment of Marcel as well, for sure,
Exactly.
which doesn't come cheap, right? He's well-established C-level, having an experience which speaks for itself, and maybe, just maybe, we will see another hero to zero moment originating from GIG.
Absolutely. I think they've already gone from strength to strength, in my opinion. And we can also ask the question, like, we speculate here that GIG got the better of this deal, but we can also ask, like, how did the markets react today, and what did the investor think about these deals, both from Catena Media perspective and from GIG? And we can start by looking here at the Catena Media. So we have the graph here today, and we can see that the share price actually decreased from Catena Media. They lost about 3% or something like that from their market cap. So presumably the investors were not very excited about the deal that took place. We should remember as well that the markets are having a tough day in general today, but still they are still underperforming towards the indexes. And then we look at GIG. Okay, this was a couple of hours ago, granted, but GIG increased share price by 6%. Okay, so they increased market cap by 6%. And so clearly investors are happy about this transaction for GIG. And this also alludes to the fact that investors are clearly seeing that GIG got the better of this deal, of course. And so that also speaks to this. Another factor to this as well is the way the deal is structured, is the fact that GIG, it's an all-cash deal. However, it's being paid over 2 years, and so the first year, so you kind of at the completion of the deal, 20 million euro is being paid, 10 million after the first year, and another 15 million euro after the second year. And that means essentially that if AskGamblers continue to match the EBITDA that they've done in 2022, by the time the deal is completed, GIG has made back half of the payment. Okay, so they have made about 25 million euro during the time that it took to to basically pay the cost as well. So the way the deal is structured again speaks for the fact that GIG has done a good deal here. We're gonna see. We have Per Hellberg here in the lobby. We will see here if we can get him live here in the stream, and we'll see if it works. Per, can you hear us?
I can hear you perfectly, guys. Hi.
It's fantastic. This is the beauty of doing things live, Per. Well,
Indeed,
first of all,
live is the best, isn't it?
Fantastic. Great to have you with us here, by the way. Great to see you again. So first of all, Per, so I suppose we have two questions for you here. First of all, can you talk a little bit more about the investment round that you managed to close with Playstar? An exceptional achievement to close $50 million for a US-facing small operator under these market conditions. How did you manage? And then secondly, let's talk as well about the AskGamblers deal. But first of all, Playstar, talk a little bit more about the investment.
Sure. Thank you so much, and thanks for slotting me in here. I think, we just said that I returned this weekend from the US closing this, and what normally took like a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe a year and a half ago, we've been working on this for 6 months now. And I think the key thing what you see is that what most people don't realize is that everyone in the market, financial market, saying that I haven't invested in crypto has. So with FTX going, etc., every investor has been hit by crypto crashes a lot. So that not only paralyzed them, and this happened, it's a very tough time because they're about to conclude their annual funds and returns to the shareholders. So this has really wiped out a lot of interest the coming years. So they're sitting quite paralyzed and don't know really what to do. So as we summarized it, well, first of all, you need to have a bit of different market approach. And our market approach is, as you know, casino first, which everybody that's been around a long time knows that casino is a nice profit margin, business. And US being quite far behind in that sense means that if you put casino first, you can probably have a more stable business than the rather unstable sports season in the US that is heavily focused in September and partly into February, and then it dies down. So you have a much more stable margin. So that needed a lot of kind of education to understand that how online casino really works. The other thing is, of course, because you're focusing on one of the two kind of categories, you can build a much leaner overhead. So you don't need to populate as much as you have in the entire kind of sports betting part of your business in that sense. So I think that combined with the fact that the key thing is really if you focusing your efforts on not trying to become too large too quick, meaning that you need to establish a brand in front of every American consumer eyes, you can actually grow your business very tactical by only using performance marketing channels, which makes you control the cost and really educate yourself a lot in what it takes in terms of returning the revenues or the cost that you have spent. Our mistake in this was that we simulated far too long returns from what we can see. So we actually simulated that it will take, in the beginning, close to a year to get the acquisition cost back. We currently see it coming back in a little bit less than 5 months.
Wow.
So that is extremely well. And that is made by all the work we've done with special and predictive modeling, these kind of things of predominantly extremely good retention tools. So that put into context that you actually have a financial model that you can give good returns from. I think that is what is missing today, that a large operators out there, some of them don't even have a plan how to come into profitability because they're burning too much cash. So going a little bit smaller but extremely profitable has been one way to get the attention. Adding to that, and after 5 months, we're typically trading at the core KPIs that we thought that we'll have in 25, we wanted to see now in the beginning. So that in a combination was good. The last thing in these circumstances, what amount you need to ask for. In some cases, the smaller amount you ask for, the less attention you will have. Because the big funds, they won't spend a lot of time investing in this if the amount is too small. But on the other hand, at this stage, a large amount frightened a lot of people. So what we had to explain a lot was the fact that you're probably never ever going to come into this industry cheaper than you will do now, because it's so much pushed down. I mean, multiples were 20 plus revenue a year and a half ago. Now they're 3 times revenue. So if you do that and you invest in something that can show profit, we have a good thing. And then we, in the end, show KPIs. So I think that was the the medicine for us. And we have to remember that what we announced today is an anchor investor. So we have a lot of tag-alongs to that on the line as well. So I think we're going to announce some more in the future as well. If you can live with that, we can for sure.
Oh, nice. Well, make sure to speak to us first, Per, when the time comes.
For
That's
sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's super interesting. So what you are saying essentially is that you are using the fact that you are not. It's not your strategy to become huge in the sense of the top four to your advantage, whereas everyone else has been saying in the US that size is all that matters. You're actually saying the opposite. Is that, hold on, it's actually the opposite. That if you can be more targeted and focused, it will reach profitability sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you want to have a highly profitable 3% market share of 25 billion or loss-making 20% market share? It's quite simple. So we know how large a casino will be, and if you do this nice and really focusing, because what people don't understand is, or especially in the US, is that launching a casino into a new market is more of a repeat function, while building up a sports stuff into everything from licenses to structure and what that costs. It's completely different for sports. So it means that you can actually run your business from much lower or much more efficient overhead structure. You don't need to add that much more. And if you do that smart and just keep into the fact that you have enough inventory to work towards in terms of performance marketing, you can find a level of conversion rates and cost for that. And you know that if you can be very cherry picking the customers you like, you will also have the right retention models. That is the luxury of being small. The last thing is they can actually afford saying no to any kind of problematic gambler you want to have, because you don't need them. And that combined with everything else also triggers the kind of ESG talks that are starting to show up in some American funds today. That has not been there before, but sustainability becomes more important. And they don't want to see, halfway through this venture that we have a dramatic kind of negative margin impact because there are rules in place to prevent problematic gambling. So if you sort that from the beginning, you're better off.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for that, Per. And final question for you as well is on the PlayStar topic is when do you expect to be EBITDA positive?
Well, depends how the state roll out. What we can say like this is that we're building a case where basically we should fund all the company's overhead by just the business we're running in New Jersey. New Jersey should be break even in a bit less than 2 years from now. And on top of that, from about 3.5 years, we should be able to fund all our new state rollout by our own cash flow without giving too much numbers. So it's looking very positive.
Okay, amazing. So the caveat to have you here as well, Per, of course, is that your former employer, Catena Media, as you were the CEO over, obviously sold the assets of Os Gamblers, the flagship brand here today. And we speculated here that GIG got the better of that deal, 4 times EBITDA, very friendly terms to pay that deal as well. What's your thoughts here as the news came out today?
Well, I need to be a bit careful what I'm saying now, obviously having a bit knowledge about this, which I think everybody respects. But, there's always 2 people to sign an agreement. And if that agreement doesn't make sense, one party will not sell. So I think it's more about what fit it is and how we look into it. I think you mentioned some of the key points already, Pierre, and that is the fact that one thing is what are the different assets in that group delivering in terms of trend. There's one thing what to do now, what is the trend now? We know that, and that's no news. We know that As Gamblers had a big amount of money coming in from Germany. And we know what happened that to casino, right? But on the other hand, once the German market is stabilizing, it will be growth after that. So the question is how much you caption on that. We know that they did fairly good amounts from Asia. What have happened with that? And then the last thing is that how much do you think that it's worthwhile running the operations if your core focus as a company would be US only? And we also know that they have had, because of the market approach towards gray markets, because As Gamblers have been phenomenal of reviewing every casino there is, because they also want to tell which casinos that aren't good for the best of the customers. So they're reaching in to everything. They have links to both the good and bad. And that some regulator in US might have some problems with if your core focus only on the US. So the question is, do you then focus only delivering good product for US, but then you on the other hand lose the width of the product to kind of refer everything about this? Or in the end you say, as we cannot monetize that much on the US traffic because of this, maybe it's better let it go to someone, and then it's a kind of revenue trend thing from this. And a way also as a company to maybe defer away some of operational costs that you would have to battle with otherwise. So I think it's tricky. 4 times EBITDA for a gaming company like the way as gamblers is far too cheap, I think. But then it's all how it becomes more strategic thing for my old employer, what they would like to do and how they would like to invest that money. Because that money still, in the right cases, invest in US, can probably provide a much better ROI over time than what the future of us gamblers can do for them rightly invested.
Right. It makes sense. So I mean, as you say, 2 people need to sign a contract, and sometimes in negotiation you will have a range, right? So you would consider to sell the brand at between this and this, and obviously you are hoping to negotiate into the higher bracket, and the other party will have a similar range as well. And perhaps in this case, it seems that GIG were kind of happy in the sense that they got the kind of slightly better deal than you would expect, whereas Catena Media were hoping perhaps to push that valuation a little bit higher, but they were still okay to take that deal at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a quite simple simulation. I would think what Michael and the American team has done for many years in US is exceptional well of investing much earlier than anybody else to build an SEO presence in states that are about to launch. And now we know we have sports in 20 odd states, but we have casino in very few, and casino will be the largest revenue over time in US. So that's what I mean. If you look of the IRR coming out from 45 million by keeping them in as gamblers, or if you take that, investing it in US and look at the potential growth you have there now, I think that must be one of the key things why they decided to release it as some people would say cheap. But I think the interest rate over time will be much better if they use that money in the US.
Brilliant. Perfectly explained, Per. Nico, any questions from you here before we say thank you to Per?
Yeah, first of all, it's quite interesting, as you already pointed out. It depends on where you actually spend the money, right? But not each and every other company, entering the US is that kind of focused on a specific niche, right? Which you obviously found for your company. So if you just think about, when Caesars entered Manhattan, New York, and they were offering like a $3,000 sign up and deposit bonus, even $45 million don't last that long. Right. So, but as you already pointed out, it depends on actually how you invest the money. But I don't know if you will answer that question, but I will just give it a shot. Right?
Sure.
I will just give it a shot. Did you specifically look for the $15 million dollars, or did you actually look for less and you just went with the flow and you're like, okay, if we can get more, then we will use the more, or have you been looking for more money? So if you can just...
A startup like us looks for always a lot of money. Right. So we've been out looking for more, but in this case, we decided to do like this, 2 things. We can see an incredibly fast growth right now. And we are a European-based company. It becomes a bit problematic if you bring too much ownership in a foreign entity into US, because you suddenly need to operate over US financial laws and structures if you have more than 50% of American ownership in your business. So we want basically to control the ownership percentages in the group in a way that we don't need to spend too much time too quick on the kind of administration rather than driving the business. So that's one thing why we try to stage this. The other thing is that by the trend we're typically doubling the valuation of the business every 6 months right now. So that means that going for larger amounts means 2 things. A, you need to have fast growth, and you also need to come over a certain amount of monthly revenue. Then you cannot take into the next level of investors, meaning larger institutionals. And we decide therefore to go for this and then go for a larger round than summer or after summer to control dilution for the shareholder base, basically.
Interesting.
Fantastic. Per, thank you so much for sharing your information here. Thank you, Thomas, for jumping on just spontaneous here and sharing your knowledge and
no
wisdom.
worries.
And once again, congratulations to the closing the investment. And we're looking forward to follow up with you soon again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know where to find me, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye. Same to you.
Fantastic, Nico. Really interesting to hear Per Hellberg's thoughts here on both, obviously, the acquisition here by GIG and also his own investment round that he closed here. Fantastic. This is why we do this, Nico. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is an example. So last week, if I'm not mistaken, last week or the week before last week, we had this kind of graphics where you could see how a company, based on funding, actually evolves itself from a little tiny house into a skyscraper.
Yes.
And this is pretty much what now we have an example for this one. Of course, you can always onboard like way more money, but you need to do it in a wise way. And Per is just a perfect example, not being too greedy, because he just for sure has the bigger picture. So kudos once again and shout out to him. Well done. Well done.
Absolutely. Nico, the time is rushing past us here. We are at topic number 2. So we're going to go into topic number 3, which is evolution. So we're going to talk about evolution for a little bit here. So the other day, or actually yesterday, the share price of Evolution tanked. I think it dropped something like 6 to 7%. And investors were trying to understand what was causing this sudden drop in share price. And at the same time, you saw a sudden drop for Kindred, and you saw a sudden drop for Betsson as well. However, Betsson and Kindred recovered their share price. Meanwhile, Evolution did not recover the drop in share price. So this was really interesting. It was a bit of a mystery, even for us in the editorial team in iGaming. We were trying to figure out what is happening here. And after researching a little bit further, we realized that the day before, an announcement came from the European Union when they had rubber stamped this proposal by the G7 to essentially put a minimum threshold on corporate tax. And so there are several jurisdictions, Malta included, that is using kind of lax corporate tax laws in order to attract companies into the island. And the G7 saw this as a bit of a race to the bottom, so to say. You have like major corporations like Facebook that is taking advantage of like kind of zero corporate tax regimens in Ireland, for example, and this is happening all over the world, of course. And so the G7 want to come together to set a minimum threshold of 15% corporate tax. And this is now being kind of rubber stamped, and it's taken another step to be enacted then essentially. And so what this means as well is that this is not true for all companies. This is specifically targeting major corporations. And actually the threshold for this minimum tax rate to be affected is a turnover in your company of 750 million euro a year. So if your turnover is lower, then these tax laws does not apply to your company. Okay, if they are higher, they do apply for your company. And what we figured out is that what happened is that when Kindred and Betsson dropped the share price, we suspect that investors thought that this was going to affect Kindred and Betsson, because again, both Kindred, Betsson, and Evolution are domiciled in Malta, so they pay taxes in Malta, and so they pay this corporate tax rate of 5%. Because in Malta we have something called the imputation system, which basically means that while Malta has a 35% corporate tax rate, if like 90% or more of your revenue is derived from outside of Malta, you can get a 30% rebate. So effectively, you pay 5% corporate tax. Okay, so investors thought that Betsson and Kindred also were affected by this corporate tax rate that is being discussed in the EU. But it turns out that at least Betsson does not reach that 750 million euro turnover, so they are not affected whatsoever by this announcement. However, Kindred, they are turning over more than 750 million euros, so they are actually within this threshold, and they will need to pay these higher taxes as well eventually. And so that's kind of the background to the story here, Nico. I suppose over to you. Like, did this shock you in any way when you saw this announcement? Evolution obviously is a business that is so perfectly like run, and like the margins are everything in this company, and investors obviously are very spooked out the fact that the profit margins might be affected here.
Yeah, what you can just see, and to sum things up, as soon as there's any negative news just spreading around affecting Evolution or the margins of Evolution, the share price just decreases a little bit, right? Just remember when we had the first report back in one year, accusing Evolution taking players from Iran, and the share price just tanked by at least 25-30%, and then it recovered again. And as of now, where you can just see if the share price didn't take a massive hit like we've already seen. But it would be quite interesting, and maybe we will just do this once again with the... You're way better with names than I am. With our...
I have like early onset Alzheimer's. I'm so bad with names. It's like embarrassing.
Yeah, but you know the Evolution miracle. So whenever something affecting Evolution actually comes up, we have this one guy actually joining our show, and he always nails it. So
Magnus Andersson, perhaps.
Yeah, yes. Magnus, and exactly. So first of all, Magnus, I'm so sorry for not having your name on my mind. But as said, he always nails it. He got his facts right, and I'm pretty sure that he would, come up with a pretty decent line of argument as well. But if Absolutely. I'm not mistaken, the Evolution share price already recovered as well.
So just a final insight here, basically, is that if we look at what Evolution is paying in taxes today, because like Evolution doesn't only pay taxes in Malta, they also pay taxes in the US, for example, where they are locally regulated. But it averages out. So in the last quarterly report, they paid 6.9% tax on their profit, basically, and that equated to 16.4 million euro. Now, if this 15% tax rate would be enacted, that would mean that they, instead of 16.4 million euro, they would pay about 36 million euro. So this is an increase by 20 million euro. And that obviously takes away about 10% of their profits than if the tax rates are increased by 10%. And so Evolution has always, so just to put some context here, okay, so Evolution has given guidance that they want to have a 69% profit margin. And whenever Evolution fluctuates like 0.2% from analyst expectations, the share price takes a tumble. The shareholders like massively punishes Evolution for like every little single 0.%, right? And now here we're talking about 10% reduction in profits, essentially, that will go there. However, here comes the interesting thing that investors have not thought about. Okay, that is not talked about in any story, whether it's being between investors, institutional investors, in the newspapers, and so on, is that Malta obviously will look at giving Evolution incentives. Okay, so while the tax rate is increasing by 10%, Malta is extremely business friendly. Malta is very cautious about making sure that the major organizations like Evolution, who are domiciled here, stay domiciled in Malta. Okay, not only that, but Malta is also interested in attracting new businesses, because right now there is a power struggle going on between Malta, Isle of Man, Curacao, other jurisdictions, Gibraltar, and so on and so forth, especially within the iGaming industry. And so that it becomes very important for the government to ensure that organizations like Evolution remain in Malta. And so you can be absolutely sure that the government of Malta are going to look at what incentives they can give Evolution to kind of get around this minimum tax law. Who knows? At the end of the day, we'll have to look at the legal framework, what the government will be able to do. But you can be sure that they are going to give some form of incentives to Evolution to, again, make it more attractive for them to remain in Malta. This is something that investors are not taking into consideration right now, and something that hasn't been spoken about. We are investigating this internally, asking some kind of professionals within Malta what we can expect. But it's something that investors should be aware of. It's just the very business-friendly stance that Malta have in general. Yes. Okay, let's jump over to the next topic of today, Nico. And I want to actually look at the future of search, you could say, which is ChatGPT. It has not escaped anyone, definitely not anyone who is watching this show, that OpenAI have launched this chatbots software, which you can essentially ask anything and it will give you very, very smart replies back. It's kind of like a low-level Turing test almost, where it's almost like a human is speaking back. It's very difficult to discern the AI from a human being now, and this is the Turing test, right? Which is if an AI passes the Turing test, if you cannot discern whether you are speaking to a machine or to a human being, that's when we are crossing the line towards the Turing test and AGI, as we call them, which is AIs that can think of their own. This is like a lower level passing of that test, which is why it has drawn so much attention to itself. And Nico, I wanted to do an exercise together here today, because I know that you've been looking into this as well. And a lot of people, they have been speculating, is this just overblown? Because actually the answers it gives is kind of generic. It doesn't really give you anything. You know, it's not really being creative, or it doesn't really tell you any interesting things. So I wanted to ask you, Nico, first of all, what do you think about ChatGPT? And also, can you tell us maybe a few, say we can do 3 use cases each. What do you think, Nico?
Yeah, but we will start with 101, right? It's not
Okay.
like me giving 3, then you giving 3.
Okay.
First of all,
Okay,
for all the people not being that familiar with GPT, it's a chatbot. First of all, it's still a beta version, so it's not a final version, right? So you need to sign up, and then you can literally ask the chatbot things or advise the chatbot to give you a text or wording on that, and this chatbot actually writes articles, and then you can specify the article, like, you know, be more rewrite it in a more engaging way, etc. And then the chatbot actually comes up with advertisements, etc. And going that far, that the chatbot even gives you kind of better lines of code, right, with respect to not way more advanced, but the chatbot comes up with a suggested line of code, which is insane, and which as of now has not yet been seen. So that's pretty much the thing, and a lot of people are actually playing around with the chatbot. So you can actually just ask ChatGPT how to rob a bank. So if you just ask it, okay, how to rob a bank, then the reply would be like, nah, you're not supposed to rob a bank, blah, 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 all good. So this is kind of the ethical answer which the bot actually gives you. But if you rephrase your question, like, okay, if I want to do a movie about how to rob a bank, how could the plot be? And then the chatbot actually comes up with a plot. So there are still ways to actually trick the bot, but it's a quite sophisticated approach. And I'm pretty sure that this ain't the end of the line. Although one of the investors, Elon Musk, was one of the early investors, but due to, you know, Tesla actually doing pretty much the same thing with AI, he actually, due to the conflict of interest, had to pull out with his investment. And Microsoft actually backed up the company with $1 billion in 2019. So they are well equipped. It's not like some crazy dudes coming up with some lines of code. They have deep pockets. So as already
Absolutely.
mentioned. This won't be the end. But just to answer your question, one of the use cases. First of all, it's like using this as first level support, right? Which is quite obvious to interact with your end customers. But as we are not in the easy money line, we should come up with a way more sophisticated task, which actually could be
Yes.
taken over by something or a chatbot. And probably, which could be quite interesting, especially for our industry, and having the micro betting in mind already. That you literally just ask the chatbot. First of all, you need to give him information how to value a market and what are the KPIs for a market as well. But then just rephrase the micro betting. What are the do's and don'ts within the micro betting, and what could be the make it or break it for a micro betting, and what could be the markets which a micro better could actually look into. Maybe that could be one of the use cases for that as well within our industry.
Yeah.
What's your first take?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to make a very quick observation here, and that's this: how funny it is how people, when they react, when they communicate with ChatGPT the first time, how differently everyone. How different everyone communicates with the bot. So, for example, within our team, first of all, we had like Martin, our head of sales. Okay, so his first command was, can you write out a pitch for an exhibition booth at iGaming Next Valletta? Right, it's a salesperson, so he wants to have help with sales. Okay, and and then me, my first command was, can you write a love poem about the iGaming industry? Okay, that's just that's me. Okay, and and then the funniest thing was our editorial team. So our editorial director, Jake Evans, his first command was, "Will will you destroy content production? Like, will I be out of a job?" He was fearing for his career with ChatGPT. I just thought that was funny. Everyone has a very different perspective of how they see this bot, and it's being like translated into how they first communicate with it. So that's just my first observation. Secondly, I mentioned here that I asked the app to write a love poem about the iGaming industry, and in the iGaming Weekly News, we are not scared of doing new things. So today, I'm going to read a poem written by ChatGPT. My love for gaming knows no bounds. It fills my heart with joy and sounds. From the thrill of the spin to the rush of the win, I can't get enough of this industry's charms. I love the flashing lights and shiny screens, the endless options for fun and thrills. From poker to blackjack to roulette to craps, there's always a game that speaks to me. And the people, oh, the people I've met. They're passionate and full of glee. We bond over the love of the game, and together we make magic happen. So here's to the iGaming industry, my one and truly love and passion. May we continue to grow and thrive, bringing joy to gamers around the world. That is the love poem that our dear AI wrote to us about the iGaming industry. I couldn't have done it better myself, Nico. Okay, so to your actual question, what is an actual use case above writing love poems? I would say that for me, what stands out is I think that actually, you know what? I'll say it like this. It has already had an impact on our company. So we were going to hire 2 different roles in our editorial team, 2 junior roles, a copywriter, the kind of a social media editor, journalist type role. We are now combining that into one role because ChatGPT can do all the copyright work for us. Okay, so we don't have to do copywriting anymore. The different departments in our team. So, for example, our event manager Maria, she is English is not her native language, and she is in charge of iGaming New York. And so when she needs copies for the website for iGaming New York, she would go to the editorial team and she would ask for copies. Now she can just write her own version in ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to, can you just brush up the text for me? And it will do it. And we don't need a copywriter anymore. So it has already had an effect on our company, saving us to have to hire an additional person. That's my first one. What about you, Nico?
So I'm already. First of all, thank you for that example, which is quite interesting, especially if you're in the publishing industry as well. And as Martin, I'm reading out a text from Martin Friend, one of the Apparat Gaming slot provider games owners, and he just states like they already created some quite nice marketing text for some of our slots. So they are already using the power of ChatGPT already. So obviously it has already paved the way for different operators already. But getting back to the second one, where it can actually and literally enforce our industry, is if you're looking for a decent marketing campaign within the ASO space, so App Store optimization. You can define your peer group, like, okay, we're in the live score business and we want to establish a live score app within the Apple App Store. So please come up with a marketing phrase and a marketing text as well. So this could also be one of the use cases which we might see without anyone actually saying or stating that they use the power of ChatGPT for that specific marketing campaign. But this could also be something worth to look into as well. So what's your second guess?
Well, I'm gonna just give a kind of forward-looking statement here. So I don't think ChatGPT is able to do this today. However, seeing that you can already ask the bot to do some coding in certain situations, I would say that it's just a matter of time before we can take a brief that would normally go to a web agency and just input it into ChatGPT and ask it to create a website. And from there to iterate the website, just with normal human commands, just like you would communicate with a web agency. I think that seems to be like the natural next step. Like if we want to create like a great new news portal, we can just do that by inputting commands into the AI software. That seems to me to be the next step here.
Nice one. That's a good one as well.
Yes.
That's a good one as well. Or literally optimizing existing code to cope with probably a better SEO ranking as well, right?
Yes,
this could also be something where you just have a massive amount of data which ChatGPT could look into and just optimize things based to underlying data sets as well. So this could also be something worth to look into.
Absolutely. I think that's great, Nico. The time is rushing past us here. There's so many more points we can make here on ChatGPT, but I think we can both agree that ChatGPT, hype or reality. What do you think?
Depends. I'm pretty sure it will find its niche, and there will be use cases where from today in 2 years of time, everybody's like, how did we actually solve this before ChatGPT? And I'm pretty sure there will be this specific niche even for ChatGPT.
Absolutely. Brilliant, Nico. Thank you so much. We actually did not have time for a last topic here today, which was we were going to discuss a little bit our potential recession that we have ahead of us here. It's easy to get comfortable in the situation we are in today, where seemingly things are progressing as normal. But I just want to mention here that the Feds, they increased the interest rates here yesterday, and that was not exactly the news. That was not so unexpected, but what they are saying is that we will see very, very high interest rates going into even 2024, 2025, and then potentially normalizing as something like 2026 or something like this. And so what we can expect, what we should think about now is buckle down. we have not seen the worst. The effects of these interest rates are going to be seen in the economy starting from kind of now in a couple of months and last for years. And so, not to be too kind of like doomsday active here, but if you are like Per Hellberg looking for investment, or if you're running a small business that is not profitable, or if you have a lot of loans right now as a private individual, or if your economy is a little bit tight, like buckle in, make the best of it, make sure to make changes you need to do now, because it's going to be a tough 2023. So I'm sorry to close on a little bit of a negative tone here today. I think that if we plan for this, then we are the ones who are going to come out of it best, I think. And also, we are in an industry which is fairly recession-proof. At least that is the assumption until today. Nico, any final word from you?
Yes. So I was expecting one more use case from your end to ChatGPT.
Okay.
What's the perfect recipe for a pina colada?
Oh, that is a very good question. Yeah, I think we will have to ask ChatGPT this. Well, we can do it live here. Hold on 1 second. We have it. What is the perfect recipe for a pina colada? Okay, let's see what ChatGPT says. The AI system is not perfect. It's overloaded at the moment. We can't get the answer here for it, unfortunately. But you know what, Nico? Whatever the perfect recipe is, it is... here we go. The perfect pina colada recipe can vary depending on personal taste, but a classic version would include the following ingredients: 4 ounces of pineapple juice, 2 ounces of coconut cream, 2 ounces of white rum, 1 cup ice, half a cup frozen pineapple chunks. There you go, Nico. That's the perfect pina colada. Shall we make it? Shall we ask the AI to make it as well? And we go down to the beach.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for today, Nico. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to the audience for chiming in. Thank you for Per for coming on. Just very spontaneous and giving his insights. And thank you to everyone. And we will see you here next week. Merry Christmas, everyone, and take care of each other.
Okay, bye-bye.
New York, New York, the city that never sleeps, and the gateway to the land of opportunity. A true melting pot where dreams become reality and great ideas come to life. With the U.S. online sports betting and iGaming sectors predicted to generate $10 billion in 2023, there is so much potential to fulfill. The competition is fierce, and nobody said it would be easy. But together, we can make our sector fly. So get ready to learn, connect, and inspire at iGaming Next, New York City.